Anolex CNC router machine. It says so right here on the box. Right up front here, this was provided to me by Anolex to demonstrate, put together, review, see what we can do with it. We're going to see what's in here coming up. I'm going to put this little clip up here at the beginning. As you can see, I've got it all assembled and tested and everything. This video is going to be in great detail. It's aimed for those that have never done this before or are not familiar with what these different components are and how they go together, or if you're not real mechanically inclined. I hope to help you out with this, especially on the wiring part. I've taken it in very close so you can see every little step so you don't make any mistakes. If you're experienced with putting things like this together, or lasers or 3D printers or that type of thing, you may find this boring, in which case you can either just not watch it or you can fast forward through it to any points you would want to see. But again, I wanted to make this a great detail. That's why this video is going to be somewhat long. Now, we'll unbox it. Hi, I'm Roger. Welcome to the shop, and what we're going to be doing here today is putting together this, unboxing and putting together this Anolex CNC router machine. I assume it's a 3018 style. I already have 3 different 3018s. 2 of them are Saint Smart. I have the ProVer version 1 and the ProVer version 2. Then I have a generic 3018. We're going to see what's different here. One thing I notice is different is this box is heavy. It's, unless they've got like some bricks in there for packing, this is substantially heavier than my other 3018. So this must be built pretty good. So we're going to find out. Going to open up this box, see what we got. I haven't opened this yet. It just came yesterday. So we're going to see what's in here. It even says right on the top of the box, heavy. So right off we have a fairly substantial user manual here in large format and lots of color pictures, and it's all in English. There's not multiple languages here, so this should be pretty straightforward. And from there, it looks like everything is very, very well packed. Fairly substantial thick piece of foam on the top here, and some good foam surrounding it. And we have some boxes of stuff. So what I'm going to do is get everything unpacked here. We'll lay it all out. Substantial package of, whoa, that's a whole set of alien wrenches there. Usually they just give you 1 or 2 to fit the machine, and these are ball end too. I'm impressed. So I'll get this all unpacked and laid out. We'll see what we got. You don't need to watch me pulling individual pieces out. Okay, get everything out of the box here, and I will caution you right off when you're unpacking the box. There's some small parts that could be easily overlooked. Most notably is this micro SD card and SD card reader here. I almost missed that. And the other thing is your collet and the nut. Those are in very, very small boxes. You got to pay attention to make sure that you get those. And other than that, we have bolts and boxes of stuff and MDF samples to play with. The gantry here is substantial. This thing is heavy, as well as the base. This isn't some lightweight acrylic made out of plastic thing. This is substantial stuff here. Of course, you get the motor, USB cable. That's the motor mount. This is our Z-axis, which I'm going to mount to that way, I'm sure, eventually. Then we got a whole bag full of stuff here, which I will dump out. See what we got here. We have spare parts with a little tiny screwdriver, some extra stuff in it to look in to see what all that's about. I assume that's going to be some kind of setting guide. I'm going to have to look at the manual on this one. Got a couple little wrenches here. A bunch of hardware. That's the clamps, clamping your work down. Assembly hardware, hex copper column, cable clips, shims, more hardware, spindle cable, more hardware. Of course, the set of wrenches. And I assume this is the power supply. That is actually the motherboard. No, it's a motherboard case. And a Z-probe, emergency stop. Lots of assembly to do here. So now I gotta look in these boxes, see what we got. Okay, there's our motherboard. Which we'll get to eventually here. So this must be the power supply. And I see a cord, so it must be. So there's our power supply, and I'm glad they sent me a US plug. So I did a demonstration on something here a while back. They gave me a European plug, and I had to go find an adapter. So I'll get everything sorted out here. We'll see what we got to do to assemble this. Okay, the first step is going to be to put the X gantry onto the bed. This is the Y movement here. X is this way, of course Z is up and down. If you're not familiar with that, some people call it Z. There are some T-nuts in the side here of this extrusion, and they are already in there. So as you can see, they're all down here at this end. I need to move them back here. And they give you this little gizmo here to space those out. So you would get them spaced like so. You do that on both sides. Then to assist with getting those lined up, as you would put this on, this is a substantial piece of metal here. They give you these little practice boards. What you would do is put one underneath to space that up and hold it where you need it. Then you would put your screws in, and of course I need to get my nuts positioned on the other side here first. To make this the least amount of frustration, get all your nuts in place first. Make sure you're sitting on a flat surface. Set your spacers in there. Then you can bring your gantry into position. Because if you're not gentle with this, you'll jostle them screws out of the way, and then, or the nuts, then you'll be scratching your head trying to figure out how you're going to get that line back up. Okay, next is, this is stainless steel hardware, by the way, so my magnetic tray didn't work too well with it. M5 by 16 screws, and of course they do give you the wrench set here, but I'm going to be using my ball drivers with a handle just because it's quicker and easier. So you will want to get yourself in position. Actually, you need two of those. Kind of hard to do two on each side when you've only got two of them. But I'll bet you I've got some scraps here I can use. I've got a scrap on the other side. And we'll need some washers. They call them shims. So you'll need a washer on each one of those bolts. Now don't tighten these up yet, just get them started. Otherwise you may find yourself with some problems down the line. Then I'll just repeat this on the other side. Once you get all your screws started, you're going to want to take your little gauge here, using the fat end of it. Make sure that it is the right distance from the back by putting it in there like that. And you can tighten your screws up. You'll need to do that on each side. You definitely want to have this square or your projects will be off. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, I have tightened these up with this ball driver here, which is a 4M&M if you're keeping track. Now I'll actually take an L handle and torque those down, because I can't get that tight a torque, and you definitely want to have these tight. You don't want to break them off here, of course, but you want to have them tight because these do generate a lot of vibration and hardware can come loose. On my generic 3018 I actually had to use blue Loctite on the screws because I just couldn't keep them in. The Saint Smarts I didn't have that issue with. You definitely want those tight. Okay, for mounting the Z-axis, I have this is the back of it. See, there's 4 holes up here, there's also 4 holes under here. On the back of your Z-axis, you'll see that there are 2 sets of T-nuts that are already in place there. You'll need your M5 by 14 screws, and you'll need washers, and this will mount like this. So I'll get my hardware all out here. We'll get this screwed on. Again, this is a 4 M&M alien wrench there if you're using a ball driver or if you're using the supplied driver. There again, just get them started. Don't tighten them down yet. Then once you have everything in place, go ahead and tighten everything up. Here again, I'll be using the, oop, there it goes. I'll be using the L handle to put final torque on it. You don't want these things coming loose. Again, don't go crazy here. You want them tight, but you don't want to start breaking stuff either. Okay, next is a spindle holder. That's this guy right here. It goes on like that. So we'll need to get some bolts out here. That's your M6 by 60. There are 4 of those. No washers in this case. There's pre-tapped holes there for them. Of course, you don't want to tighten these up yet because you got to put spindle in there, which will be the next step. So just kind of have that in place. So we'll get the spindle and the collet. We'll put that together. I have these little tiny boxes here. One will have the nut and the other will have the collet. It's an ER11 style collet, 1/8 inch for 1/8 inch bits. There are other sizes available, like for if you wanted to use a 1/4 inch shank bit. However, this little 300 watt spindle motor does not going to do well with a big 1/4 inch bit in it. You would need to put a larger motor on, and I'm told that there is a kit you can use to replace the spindle holder with a 66 millimeter holder that would accept something like the Makita compact router. Okay, your collet will have a taper on it like this. That just drops down in there like so with the taper going down towards the spindle motor, and you start your nut on it. Don't tighten it down yet because you're going to be putting a bit in it later. Okay, we've got some wires here that need to go on one side or the other. I just got to figure out which. The spindle drops in like so. And how far down is a good question. And looking at the pictures, it looks like the fan shroud belongs just a little bit shy of the top of the Z-axis gantry here. So I'm just going to guess that for now. I can also always adjust this if I need to. I'm assuming the spindle wires are going to need to be over that way, pointed towards the back, because I'm going to have to attach those. So once I get to that point, I can tighten down my spindle here. That's 5 M&Ms if you're keeping track there, and now I'll use a bigger one to torque them down better. Use the L on it. Next will be the controller base and the motherboard case, etc. So it mounts like this. You see you got all these T-slots here. You have a little protrusion. This is the back of the machine. This will go towards the right, away from the stepper motor over here. And it'll mount right in the middle, like this. Now to do that, we're going to need some hardware for that, and that is this little bag here with the little T-nuts in it. So the way I like to do these is to pre-install the T-nut. So I'll put my bolt through, and then I will screw the T-nut on a couple threads on the back. And you'll notice on the T-nuts that there's a serrated side. That side will face your bolt, so that the rounded side is away from you, or away from the plate, I should say. And you just need to put it on a couple turns. So when you slip this into the extrusion and you tighten these, those T-nuts will rotate and grab the extrusion. So when you're done, it'll look like this. You want to have them pretty much horizontal. The bottom set of T-nuts will go in the bottom extrusion. And once you have that in place, use the right driver, which in this case is 3 M&Ms. You can snug them up, and it should be about in the center. It looks about center. Okay, next you'll need the motherboard, and you'll need these little, they call them copper columns. Get your motherboard unpacked there. Make sure you're not all full of static electricity from rubbing your feet on the carpet. Okay, so which way does this mount? Mounts right side up. you'll have X, Y1, Y2, and Z. Those ports all go to the top, so they'll fit like this. These little copper columns go through the hole in the corner of the motherboard, and everything should line up just perfect. If it doesn't, you're going to need to look and see what's the matter there, but everything here is lining up absolutely perfect. You don't need to go wrenching on these. A good strong finger tight would be enough. You can look down in the back and make sure that everything is flush. Okay, in the manual they're telling you to put the cover on, which will go on like this, and you got 4 screws you put in the corners. However, you're going to have to take it back off because you're going to have to wire it. So for right now, we're going to leave that cover off. Okay, so after looking at the manual part for the wiring, they show this over here rather than in the center. If you're going through the steps as it goes, and I didn't pre-read this, I'm just going as I go here. They show this mounted in the center, but your wires won't reach where they need to go, so this whole unit needs to move over here. Not a big deal. Just loosen the screws up a little bit, slide it over here. You tighten your screws back down, put the motherboard back on. Then we'll get to the wiring part, which seems to scare a lot of people, but it's actually pretty easy and straightforward. Okay, you have an emergency stop switch that mounts in a hole over here on this side. The place for it there. And that part's pretty straightforward. It's got a nut on the back. Slip the wire through the hole. Slip the nut on. Just like that. And if you're ever wondering why your CNC won't start, check and make sure that that isn't pushed in. You do a little quarter turn twist to release it. It'll pop right back out. So this wire is going to go on the motherboard. And for that, I'm going to get you in real close. Okay, the switch you just put in, if you look on your board here, everything's marked. There's one here marked switch, and one marked reset. This plugs into the one marked reset. You notice there's some protrusions on here. They fit into a slot on here, so they will face the outside. And it just plugs in like that very easily. There should be no resistance. Don't bend the pins. Okay, next on the side of the stepper motor over here by where you just put your switch in, you'll have 2 wires that are marked X limit. They will plug into the 2 red ports right here for X. There's a limit switch on each side. So these are the 2 X limits. And again, they're keyed. They only plug in one way. Don't force them. Look like that. All right, next is a Z limit. These come off the top of the gantry up here. You want them to come up over the top, and they will go on to the green ports right there. There'll be 2 of them. Like so. Next, you have the Y limits. These are the ones that are coming off the base down there. They go into the blue ports. So you have a little mass that'll look like that. Have a bag. Now you'll have a bag marked X, Y, and Z axis stepper cables. Get that out of the bag here. Okay, Y axis. That's the one down here on the bottom that is out of view right now, but that's on the bottom on the back. You notice that the 2 ends are different. This one down here where it's marked Y axis is a 6-pin. This is a 4-pin. The 4-pin end is what plugs into the motherboard. The 6-pin end plugs into the stepper motor. It's keyed. Same way, you've got these little protrusions here. They will face away into the slot on the stepper motor. So we need to bring this up, that being the Y axis. You want to go to Y1. That's this blue one right here. You'll have the keys up. Our next one here is a Z axis. That's the one up on the top. That's this guy up here. So there again, it plugs in the same way. It's keyed. This will come down and we'll go into your Z port. And lastly, we have the X-axis. Plugs into the stepper motor back here on the side. And that will come around, and boy, this is going to be tight. Come around and go into that red port. Like so. Okay, next is the wire for the spindle motor. They give you a piece of wire here. You have a red and a black. You'll notice right here, there is a 3-port connector right there. You'll need to put the red on the top to the positive and the black on the bottom to the negative. So I'll loosen those screws up there. Now the other end of this, to separate those wires a little bit, that'll go to your spindle motor. Red to red, black to black. They give you these little connectors here, which you push with your finger, and it releases the spring inside so you can plug the wires in there. So that's all there is to that. Now you got a mess of wires you got to get something done with. One more item to go on the motherboard, and that's the Z setting probe for the Z offset. This is kind of a nice design because this does need to plug into the motherboard. They give you a little tail here, so you can just plug this tail in, and you don't need to leave that hanging on the machine all the time. So if you look here, you got the little 2-wire probe. There'll be one down here that says probe. That just plugs in there, and you can leave this hang out the hole at the bottom of the motherboard opening. So speaking of motherboard openings, here's our cover we need to get put on, and I'll do some wire dressing here in a minute. Got 2 fans. We have a switch and a fan. The switch will plug in right up here above the where you plugged in the emergency stop. And the fan plugs in up here to this very top one. Then it's a matter of getting all your wires to go through the slots in the bottom. There's slots down there to have everything pass through, or out the side, as in the case with what's over there. Eventually you'll get it like this. It takes a little bit of fiddling around to get all the wires in the right place. Once you get it in, there's 4 screws that go in these 4 corners. Of course, you want to look underneath and make sure you're not pinching any wires anywhere between the cover and the base. Wire management. As you can see, this is kind of a mess. What you don't want to do is pull all this back down here tight, because this has to move back and forth and up and down. So you're going to want to leave all that slack for these items up here, and we'll deal with that in a minute. But as you come around the corner right here, you'll see there's a little plate out there with some holes tapped in it. You have these little cable clamps. You can put that cable clamp around the cables, and then with 2 screws, clamp your cables in place up there. Yeah, they also give you a piece of spiral wrap, which you can wrap your cable with. And it's a matter of getting one end unwrapped a little bit and starting it around the cable, and then just work your way around as you go. So when you're done, it'll look something like this. Nice thing about spiral wrap is you can leave little exits. There's the limit switch cables, and I left a space around the connector for the spindle. And then I let an exit out for the Z-axis stepper motor. So that takes care of that part of the wire management. And for the next part of the cable management here in the lower section, you'll see that there's a couple sets of holes. You've got some cable clamps. Again, it's the same type of thing as getting all your wires together. I'll get my Z-axis probe out of the way there. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this since it's black on black, and I have to pretty much keep my fingers right in the way. What I'm going to do is start both of these, but I'm not going to tighten them up yet until I decide exactly how I want to tie this up. I stood this up on end just to make things a little bit easier. There's another one up here above your emergency stop where you can put a cable clamp. Okay, with it still up on its side and you're facing the back here, there's a set of holes right here, set of holes right here, and there's a set of holes right there for 3 more cable clamps. And that will clamp all this stuff in nice and neat like this. So I'll get those put in. So when you're done, it'll look like this. A very, very good cable management system. So now I guess I'm just about ready to put some power to this thing. There is a protective plastic sheet on top of the bed here, and you can turn this knob to rotate the bed. Don't go spinning this real fast, because as you spin that stepper motor, it does generate a very small amount of electricity. If you go spinning it too fast, you could damage your motherboard. So we'll get this peeled off of there, and I need to get some power together and some things cleaned up. Okay, I'm getting ready to get this thing hooked up to the computer here. We'll do a little testing on it, make sure everything works. The power plugs in right there. Power brick, and I need to put the cord on that over there later. And then your USB cable will plug in here. This does not have an offline controller, although there is a port on the motherboard for one. Well, I know what I'll be doing later. We're supposed to get a lot of this stuff, and I don't want it. Okay, so packaged with the machine here is this little 8 gig flash drive. So I'm going to plug that in and we'll find out what's on it. Okay, so looking at what's on this card, we have software. So you have the driver, you have Candle in the UGS platform. We have some test G-code we can run. Smiley face, snowflake, and a snowman. And we have a user manual. This is probably identical to what's printed there. And then there's an assembly and wiring video. So, software. I have to do the driver. And I'm pretty sure I already have this installed here. Click on that. Yes. Install. Driver install failure. That's interesting. If you have antivirus on your computer, you're going to have to disable it to install this driver. I just found out. And there we go. Now we're installed. So what I want to do here with Candle, since it is not a program that you actually install, I'm going to copy it to my desktop. A little Control C here. Over my desktop, a little Control V. So there's Verbal Control. I can open up that folder. You double click on this to start Candle. And so here we have Candle opened up. I need to turn the machine on. Okay, connected now with Candle. As I said there, I had to disable my antivirus. This has Norton antivirus on it, and it likes to block everything. So I had to disable it in order to install that driver. I opened up one of the files in here, the test file, the little smiley face thing, just for fun. And now I'm able to connect and move the move the CNC as I need to. If you first come up and it's saying it's not connected, go up here to Service and then Settings. And I'm on COM7 here at 115,200 baud. If you're not connected, click on this little thing here, and it can check your other COM ports. And it doesn't happen very often, but it can. So this is also where you can change your units from millimeter to inches, and etc. And that's a subject of a whole nother video. What I want to do here now is just move the different axes around and make sure they all work. So to move the axis, there's a console on here where you can move things individually, and you can decide how fast you want them to move. So we'll move X. Sure, it moves both ways, moves very smooth. We'll move Y. And something that a lot of people get confused on their Y-axis is they think it's backwards. It's not. So when you push the arrow that appears on the screen to be going away from you, the bed will actually move towards you, like so. When you push it, the arrow that's pointing down, where you think it's going to come forward, it will go back, like this. That is normal and that is correct. You are not backwards. Okay, for our Z height, raise that up a little bit. That looks good. Spindle. I've got it set for 8,000 RPM right now. Fairly quiet. Speed that up. And we can slow it down. So everything's looking good. So what do I think of the build quality of this? Of course, I haven't actually made anything with it yet, but it's heavy duty. The only thing it's really lacking is some acrylic sides, but I can cut some of them on one of the lasers and make acrylic sides for this, as my other ones have. Kind of keeps the chips from flying everywhere. Otherwise, there's no plastic on this other than the little cable clamps. Everything is metal, and it's really built. It's built like a tank. I mean, it's heavy. It's way heavier than my other CNCs that are also 3018. So I say this is stocky. It's well built. The spindle clamp here, it's all metal. It's not plastic, and that's one of the complaints I've had about some of the CNCs. I got that plastic housing on there, and it's prone to breaking or cracking or something like that happening. The only snafu I had was getting the driver installed. I didn't have a driver on this particular laptop. This is a newer one, and Norton decided didn't want to let me do it. But bypassed Norton, got it on there. As you saw, we did the test motions. So there's how to assemble the 3018 CNC. Again, it was done in detail. In case you're not familiar with the operations of this or where things go, or you're not real mechanical, I thought I would show this in great detail like I do with all of my assembly videos. I'm going to end this here to keep this from getting too obnoxiously long. The next video on this, we're going to do an actual startup, and we'll make something. I'll show you how to get that set up. The CNC has a learning curve. You're not going to just take it out of the box if you've never used one before and just start making stuff. There's a learning curve to it. You're going to have to learn feed rates. You're going to have to learn Z offset. There's some things you're going to have to learn. And that's what we'll get into in the next video. So if you got anything out of this, appreciate getting a thumbs up. Always helps the channel. And there'll be a link in the description where you can get you one of these. This is a very heavy-duty, well-built machine. I'm Roger in the shop. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.